Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coping with Anxiety here at your virtual Elmhurst Public Library. I'm so glad that you are here to join me for this. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about anxiety, what anxiety is, and how we can cope with it. So my name is Tracey Orick. I am the social services specialist here at Elmhurst Public Library. Some of you may have heard of me or met with me before. If you haven't, I thought I would just say hi and introduce myself before we get going here. A quick note, if you or anyone you know are experiencing any form of a mental health issues that are resulting in thoughts of hurting yourself or others, please call 911 and seek emergency assistance. This information that I'm about to present today is not intended to diagnose or treat an anxiety disorder, and I would ask that you would consult a medical professional for a diagnosis and a treatment plan. So first, let's talk about anxiety and what it actually is. So anxiety is our body's natural response to stressors in our lives. It is a feeling usually associated with fear or apprehension. The good news is anxiety is normal. It is a normal feeling that most human beings do experience. It can vary depending on the situation, so it can come off as a very mild anxiety to things that are more severe. It is the most common of the mental health disorders, so anxiety, depression, bipolar, all those various different mental health disorders. Anxiety is the most common. We all experience some form of anxiety at some point in our lives, and for some of us at some point during each and every day. So we're going to talk about the types of anxiety really quick. There are 5 types of anxiety that are diagnosed and treated. There's generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, panic disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder. I just noticed a typo that should say stress in there, and social anxiety disorder. So general anxiety disorder, or GAD, is the most common of the anxiety disorders. It is usually characterized by chronic anxiety. That means it's a generalized anxiety that someone feels all the time. And there, again, are different levels of it, to the very mild to the most severe. But it is a general life stressor anxiety. It usually includes exaggerated worry and tension, even when there's little or nothing to provoke it. So the littlest things can kind of stimulate those anxious feelings in a person. Obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD, that's something I'm sure we've all heard of. That is also an anxiety disorder, but that usually is characterized by recurrent or unwanted thoughts or obsessions and or repetitive behaviors, compulsions. Repetitive behaviors such as hand washing, which we all should be doing right now anyways, counting things over and over again, checking them, cleaning obsessively. Again, some of us may find us doing that now, but this is in normal everyday life. And they perform these tasks hoping those obsessive thoughts are going to make them go away. So that tabletop that they think there's a germ on, they're going to obsessively clean it, thinking that germ's going to go away. The reality is the germ has probably gone away, but their thoughts are still running that that germ could still be there. They didn't clean it good enough. These rituals, as they're called, they only provide temporary relief, and not performing them actually makes their anxiety worse. So when people have OCD and someone's like, stop cleaning that table, it's fine, what are you doing? That's actually making it worse. They kind of need to perform those rituals. Panic disorder. This is an anxiety disorder characterized by unexpected and repeated episodes of intense fear. The panic disorder is the one that is usually accompanied by major physical symptoms, chest pain, heart palpitation, shortness of breath, dizziness, or abdominal stress. Panic disorder can almost, for some people, they say it feels like they're having a heart attack. I do not have a panic disorder. I had a panic attack once, though, and that's what it felt like, just these horrible chest pains that I was having. So PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, is another one I'm sure most of you have heard of. This is an anxiety disorder that develops after being exposed to some horrible event, a terrifying event. There's either grave physical harm or even death. Traumatic events that can trigger the PTSD can include violent personal assaults, physical or sexual, natural or human-caused disasters, things like hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, car accidents of any kind, or an accident at work, in military combat, which is what most people do associate PTSD with. And for a good reason. People in combat are witnessing a lot of very terrifying events and loss of life and such. Then we have social anxiety disorder, or a social phobia. So this is an anxiety disorder that is characterized by overwhelming anxiety, excessive self-consciousness in everyday social situations. So something as simple as going to the library once we reopen could prove problematic for someone with a social anxiety disorder, because normally our library is filled with many people. It can be limited to only one type of situation. So fear of speaking in a formal or informal situation. I am not good at public speaking. At least I tell myself I'm not. And I get very anxious prior to having to give a in-person presentation. I even have a little anxiety recording a Zoom presentation right now. Some people will fear eating or drinking in front of others, which then can be misdiagnosed as an eating disorder, where they don't have that. They just, for some reason, don't want to eat that hamburger in front of their brother. And then there's a severe form, and that's where people, they just can't be around other people. And they need to stay kind of in their own little circle, their place, with maybe a few other people, but for the most part cannot be in any type of social situation. So let's talk about some symptoms. So symptoms can vary from situation to person to the type of anxiety disorder. There's no clear-cut symptom to identify with every anxiety disorder. For the sake of this presentation, I'm going to focus more on generalized anxiety disorder. So when I talk about the symptoms and coping as we go forward, I'm going to be focused on generalized anxiety disorder. So symptoms can include, but again, are not limited to. Everyone is different. Behavioral. So in their behavior, they're going to have a hypervigilance. That means kind of like on edge, so to speak. I like to think of it as when I'm anxious, I will decide that that's the day I'm going to, clean out that closet or scrub my baseboards or something like that, just having that kind of extra energy and taking that behavior out on, luckily for me, cleaning. Irritability, so just being annoyed, or restlessness, can't sit still. I can't sit here anymore. I have to be doing. The anxiety is too much, and it's stopping me from just sitting here. Cognitive, so that is a lack of concentration. If you're suffering through anxiety, it's hard for you to focus. I know throughout the COVID-19, that is a struggle many of us have had, especially working at home. So we have the anxiety of the pandemic going on, plus we're in this new work environment. It can be hard to focus on our work, having racing thoughts or unwanted thoughts. As far as the whole body, that would be fatigue or sweating. So fatigue, you're just tired. Anxiety it can wear us out. Sweating, think about if you do have a fear of public speaking, or if you know someone that does, you immediately I know I do, I get flush in the face and it'll feel a little warm. So public speaking in the winter when I'm wearing a sweater, not a good situation for me. And then also common are things like excessive worry, fear, feeling of impending doom, insomnia, nausea, palpitations, or trembling. So these are some more mental and physical things that can be associated with anxiety. For this reason, anxiety is often misdiagnosed. Someone will go to the doctor saying that They're not feeling well. They're nauseous all the time and they're having trouble sleeping. And doctors will usually go right to what is the physical ailment that's causing that instead of doing a mental health assessment first. So let's talk about treatment. What are our options if we have anxiety, if we have a diagnosed anxiety disorder? So there's a lot of therapeutic interventions that are used to treat anxiety successfully. One of the most common ones is CBT, or cognitive behavior therapy. This is also used in treating people that have a substance use disorder. So this is where we take a person's negative thoughts, behaviors, and emotions and kind of modify them for a positive income. It's basically changing the way people think. We were all kind of raised or brought up to think one way. And then when we are suffering a mental health disorder, we add another layer of thinking on top of that. So CBT helps to take those thoughts and kind of reform them for more positive outcomes. Meditation, something used to still the mind, just to kind of stop and be in the moment and calm those anxious thoughts down, because once they start racing, sometimes we're never going to catch them. Psychotherapy is a talk therapy, usually for an extended period of time. Someone that is diagnosed with an anxiety disorder will meet with a mental health professional, usually over a long period of time, because there really is no end date to their anxiety. Excuse me. Their anxiety is something they're going to have throughout every stage of their life, and so they need to talk to someone about how to deal with those situations as they arise. Self-care. That's a way to develop a plan that nurtures your physical as well as mental health. I did a presentation on self-care that is on our YouTube channel. Feel free to check that out. Or to simply talk to someone you trust when you're feeling anxious. When those anxious feelings are coming, call that friend of yours, your partner, your parent, whoever it might be, someone you trust when you're feeling anxious, that can kind of help you stop those racing thoughts and feelings. I needed some water. There's also medications that are used to treat anxiety. SSRIs are the most popular common ones. SSRI stands for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So serotonin is one of the happy neurotransmitters that our brain releases when we're doing something that brings us joy. Eating our favorite food, spending time with our favorite people, even sex will release a lot of serotonin into the brain. So these medications help to release more of that serotonin and then block them from being reabsorbed. So they're kind of making sure that those serotonin things are staying up in our brain and floating around at all times, not just when we are eating that piece of pizza or spending time with a loved one. And then these are the names of some of the common SSRIs, the generic and the brand names. So Prozac, Lexapro, Celexa, Paxil, and Zoloft are kind of in that top 5 there of popularity when it comes to SSRIs. Another type of medication used to treat anxiety is benzodiazepines, or benzos. These can be very effective for people with severe anxiety, but they have a much higher risk of addiction. Benzodiazepines and alcohol are the only 2 substances that you can die from withdrawal. So if you have been taking benzos for a while and you become addicted to them, you can't just stop taking them. You need medical intervention. What happens with the people who have struggled with addiction in the past, it is much easier for them to become addicted to the benzos. So they're not taking them anymore necessarily just for anxiety. They're taking them because they're addicted to them. Some common benzos, Valium, Xanax, Ativan, Rofinol, and Klonopin. For people with generalized anxiety disorder, they may take an SSRI like a Zoloft on a regular basis to keep those serotonin bubbles floating around. And then if they know that there's a higher anxiety producing situation coming up, like getting on an airplane, they may have Xanax that they would take for that situation. All right, so now let's talk about fight or flight. The main reason for this slide is I think those kittens are very cute that are fighting there. Let's take a minute, look at those cute kittens. Okay. Okay, so should I stay or should I go? Fight or flight is a natural response that we feel in our bodies when we're faced with danger or anxiety. When a situation comes about, stress hormones are automatically released into our body, into our brains, causing these feelings. So let's use something simple as public speaking. I have to do a public speaking engagement. I'm feeling very anxious about it. I'm having a lot of racing, unwanted thoughts like, what if I bomb? What if nobody likes me? What if nobody shows up? What if, what if, what if, what if? Fight tells us to stay and face the situation. So if I were to have anxiety about speaking in front of public, I would probably practice what I was going to say. I may even practice in front of some other people, ask my family to join while I do my speech or my presentation. But that fight response is going to go, okay, what can we do to get through this? Let's fight it. Flight tells us basically, nope, no way, not going to do it, I'm out of here. So people with severe anxiety are just not going to do a public speaking if they have that severe fear of public speaking. They're not going, they're going to say in their job interview, do I have to talk in front of other people? I don't want to do that. They are going to stay behind the scenes. Fight is beneficial when we're looking to overcome some minor anxiety producing situations such as public speaking, but flight will protect us from real dangers, dangerous situations that we may find ourselves in. Flight will tell us this isn't a good idea. So, for example, going for a walk at night, you get 3 blocks in and you realize there's really no one out there but maybe one car. Flight's going to tell us this probably isn't safe. I'm going to go back home now. So we all have anxiety, right? We all face some anxious moments in our daily lives, daily situations. Not necessarily an anxiety disorder, but definitely some anxiety. Some little examples: driving in bad weather. Born and raised here in the Chicago area, still, if there's a snowstorm and I have to drive to work, I'm white knuckling it the whole way. I leave an hour early. I'm completely anxious. I don't think I breathe until I pull into the library parking lot. I'm having that big meeting at work. I'm not a fan of the public speaking, and I remember the first time I had to speak in front of the board. That was very, um, very anxiety producing for me. Something simple is you can't find your other shoe, right? Most of us put our shoes on. That's the last thing we do before we leave the house. So here I am. There's a big snowstorm. I have to drive to work in, I have to do a presentation to the board, and I cannot find my other black shoe. Those are some little things that can build up to a huge feeling of anxious. Interactions with extended family. Most of us have those people in our family that give us a little anxiety. Past due bills, something a lot of people are facing right now in the COVID pandemic with being laid off from work and not having the funds to pay their bills. Illness, another good one. That applies, not a good one, wrong choice of words, but another one that could apply to the pandemic. Anxiety about our loved ones catching COVID-19, but then minus the pandemic, just any other illness that we or family members might be facing. An upcoming exam. All of our students are e-learning right now. And while I don't know the details of what's involved in e-learning, I did online schooling, and that's tough when you have that exam coming up. And you're stressing about that. Am I ready for it? Have I done everything I can? So there's just a few examples of kind of simple, basic, everyday anxiety. Again, someone with a diagnosed anxiety disorder, this is going to cause much bigger problems for them. So most of us have kind of come up with ways to cope with our everyday anxieties, things we can do to quell those feelings. And most of the time, the feelings will dissipate. Once we find that shoe in the back of our closet and we end up getting a good grade on our exam, those anxious feelings go away. But what about those situations that are bigger than any coping skill we know? How do we deal with the big anxiety? Let's talk about the biggest one out there right now for some of us. This pandemic is probably the biggest thing most of us have faced in our lifetimes. I know for myself, I've experienced loss of loved ones and loss in other areas of my life, but this is still pretty significant. This has kind of altered all of our lives. So our feelings of anxiety and being overwhelmed, fear, anger, sadness, confusion, insert your feeling there, may be new to us. Those feelings may not be new to us, but having all those feelings within a 2.5 hour span sometimes can be new to us. And they, like I said, can fluctuate daily or hourly. I know mine do. I'm all over the place sometimes. And everyone has different concerns throughout this. I have the concern of, am I able to reach my patrons that need me and help them in the way that I am used to? But my neighbor might be out of a job, and that's a whole different concern. And no concern is bigger than another concern. Our concerns are our concerns, and if they're important to us, then that's all that matters. And then those feelings hitting all at once, I briefly touched on that. I can be scared, angry, and sad all at the same time. And that can be overwhelming, to say the least. But guess what? It's normal. It's our new normal, but it's normal. These feelings of fear and anxiety and overwhelming, impending doom, whatever it might be, completely normal. If you weren't feeling them, I would probably be a little bit more worried about you. So I like to think of coping skills as tools in a toolbox. So we're going to talk a little bit about some coping skills that maybe you already have in your toolbox, or maybe some tools you've thought about buying. You've read the reviews, you're not too sure, and everyone's toolbox is going to be unique to them. Everything in your toolbox is what you need to put in there to help you with your anxiety. Please don't, in your toolbox, anything that puts your life in danger. Obviously, that's not a tool we should buy. If it has that recall notice on it that it can hurt you or someone else in your family, please don't put that tool in your toolbox. The first one that I like to remind people all the time is feel the feels. That anger, that worry, that frustration, that overwhelmingness, all of that, feel it. Don't ignore it. You can't. Feel the feels, right? Acknowledge and accept those feelings. All of them are okay, like I said. It's kind of first you're going to feel the feeling. Okay, so I'm feeling very angry that I cannot, I'll use a real simple example. I feel very angry that I can't go to TJ Maxx. I'm going to acknowledge that. Okay, I'm angry. Why am I angry? Well, I like TJ Maxx. I like to go there and shop around and find some good deals. And I'm going to process that. Well, is it really necessary? Do I need to go to TJ Maxx? Yeah, I do. I need to go to TJ Maxx. That's me personally. I need it. But accept it. Okay, I can't go to TJ Maxx. Hopefully I'm going to be able to go back there again someday. But right now, I can't, and that's okay. I can still function without it. And those bad feelings, it's okay. But it's how we react to them that is the issue. So me being angry that I can't go to TJ Maxx is completely fine. But me being so angry that I go throw rocks through their window, that's not okay. So it's all about feelings being good. Reactions are what we have to keep an eye on. So I want you to picture a bubble. Inside the bubble are the things that we can't control. So in my bubble is myself, which is really the only thing I can control. What I eat today, whether I choose to make myself a healthy dinner or hit up Grubhub for whatever deliciousness is out there. How much, say, I spend online, right? We can't go to the store, so we might find ourselves clicking that buy now button a little too often. How much news I watch. The news is an anxiety-inducing, provoking, overwhelming thing for some people. Exercise. What can I do to kind of get my body moving? Those are the things I can control. I can also control how I deal with my feelings. And then outside the bubble are those things we can't control. So COVID-19, I can't control that. I can't. I can do what I can. I can stay home, take precautions, wear my mask when I go out for essentials, things like that. I can't control those feelings from coming. I can control my reaction to them, but I can't control the sadness and the fear coming in. The negativity in the world. So many good things are happening. So many people doing good things in light of this pandemic, and then so many others just spewing negativeness. I can't control that. And other people's feelings. I'm not sitting in their shoes. I don't know how they're feeling, and they're entitled to their feelings. They're entitled to their words. And unfortunately, some of them are entitled to their actions. But nonetheless, I can't control any of that. I can only control me. So the bubble process, as I like to call it. So we cannot control the feelings of anxiety, but after we process those feelings, our reaction is what we can control. Our reactions and coping skills are in the bubble. The feelings are outside the bubble, but how we react and cope with the feelings, those come into the bubble. Sometimes the bubble's full. We got all kinds of stuff going on in our bubble. Things are good in that bubble. Sometimes we're in there by ourselves. Sometimes we feel like we are the only thing we can control and nothing else, and that's okay too. My bubble changes again, just like my feelings do, hourly, daily, weekly. This bubble exercise is a good one to do, even putting it on paper. Taking a piece of paper and drawing that bubble and writing out those things can be very therapeutic. I've done it with groups before. I suggest you give it a try. It's even good to do with kids. It helps them understand what's going on. Okay, so we have the bubble in our toolbox. We know we can't control the feels. We know we can control how we process and react to them, to the feels after we feel them. Let's talk about those tools for our reactions. So some of our tools are used every day. Think hand tools, like a screwdriver you use to adjust the knob on one of your cabinets. And then some of the tools are really for the big jobs, those, the chainsaw to cut down the tree in the backyard. So mindfulness, talked about a little bit when we talked about therapeutic interventions. So mindfulness can kind of help us stop and focus at the moment we are in. We're living in a world right now where things are changing by the minute, by the hour, by the day. We don't have an end date. We don't know when things are going to go back to normal. We don't know when some of us will be able to go back to work. Some people don't know if they'll have a job when this is over. We don't know when our favorite coffee shop is going to be open. We don't know when we're going to be able to see our relatives again. We don't know, and that's the hardest part of the situation, is the not knowing. But take a moment to focus on what's happening in the moment, instead of focusing on the what ifs of the future. Can kind of calm those anxious feelings. So, right, this is terrible. I really want to go see my great niece. We missed her first birthday through this pandemic, and that's making me feel very angry and anxious. But you know what? She's safe. I'm going to be in this moment knowing that I'm safe and she's safe, and kind of calming those anxious feelings down. So it's just it's like taking a beat. Strive to focus on the present. What's happening right now? All right, let's talk meditation. Years and years ago, meditation was suggested to me, and I personally thought it was hokum. There's no way I can get my mind to sit still. There's no way my body can sit still. Again, restlessness, remember that a symptom of anxiety? So trying to get someone that has severe anxiety to meditate is a struggle. It took many years for me, but I'm a fan now. So it's closely related to mindfulness. It's a way to train your brain to focus on one thought or idea or feeling. So stopping those unwanted racing feelings. It calms the mind. You can meditate for a minute. You can meditate for 20 minutes. Your call, your toolbox. These can be guided or unguided. Your call, your toolbox. I personally need a guided meditation. Unguided, I'm going to go off to who knows where, but a guided meditation helps me. And there's so many apps out there that are either free or have a very minimal subscription cost. Headspace is a good one, as well as Calm. I enjoy both of those. Calm also has, and Headspace both have evening meditations, where it's kind of like bedtime stories. So that can help if insomnia is a symptom you're feeling along with your anxiety. Those are things that kind of guide you into sleep. Exercise. We all know exercise is good for us. Like, I'm not going to preach too much about this, but exercise does release those happy endorphins like serotonin that the SSRIs help with. So start small. 30 minutes a day of some form of exercise. The weather's finally getting nice. Go for a walk if you can. Yoga, which can all be done at home. We don't need to go to a yoga studio anymore. We can find yoga routines on YouTube, and also through the library, through the Hoopla. There are several yoga routines, and you can kind of customize it. I mean, there's yoga for anxiety, for crying out loud. So find what works for you. If you're more of a cardio person, there's plenty of online Zumba classes. If you've ever wanted to run, Couch to 5K is out there too. That's an app that kind of helps ease you into running. All of these things can help release those serotonins and help you kind of take your mind off those anxious thoughts. Um, I find myself, I take my daily walks. Sometimes I run, depends on how I'm feeling. And I have my book that I've downloaded through the library on Libby, and I just kind of forget about everything else and lose myself in that book that I'm listening to. I used to go for walks and listen to podcasts. I'm not going to lie, I stopped with some of the podcasts because a lot of mine were like things like the daily, where it was news related and world events, and I want my walk to be a break from all of that. Connect. This is a tough one for people, finding a way to connect with people. Some of us are living in, a house full of people and would rather disconnect maybe sometimes. And some of us are living alone. So we have to have that connection. And even if we're living with a lot of people, there's some people we just can't connect with. So video calls, FaceTime calls, Zoom. Elmhurst Library now offers meeting rooms that you can meet with people if you need to connect. Even if you need to connect with family members to plan that reunion in September, you can do that through Zoom. Write a letter to someone. Remember that? Remember, some of you maybe we used to write letters to each other way back in the day and use stamps. So that's a way to connect with someone. How nice is it to get a letter in the mail? Share your feelings with someone in your home, someone outside your home via any of these virtual ways to connect with people. Surround yourself with positive people in this virtual world, which means also disconnecting from the news, like I said, from negative people and social media, which is sometimes, I think, the downfall of all of us. I know since this the pandemic kind of really began, I've definitely thinned out my friends list on Facebook because I don't want the negativity. It's not helping me at all. It's not good for my anxiety to read, to scroll past a news article that is going to end up being fake, but the headline is something that immediately triggers anxiety in my brain. Write it down. So journaling is a way to help process those feelings when you're feeling anxious. Kind of putting those words to paper kind of like dumps them from your brain onto that piece of paper, and kind of puts them outside the bubble, so to speak. Don't think you have to write some multi-page poetic masterpiece that's going to be turned into a made-for-TV movie one day. Just write down what you need to write. Maybe it's 4 words, maybe it's 4 pages, whatever it is. But journaling has proven to be very therapeutic and a very good coping skill for some. So routines, we all had somewhat of a routine, and those are pretty much out the window right now. But we can still focus on our simple routine. So, say you have young children at home, there was probably a routine involved with when everybody wakes up and has breakfast and check their backpacks and get on the bus or whatever it might be. If you don't have young children, you still had your routine in the morning before you started your day, whether it was going to work, going to meet friends, going to help in the community, whatever it was. Well, forget it. Those are all gone. Try to focus on a little bit of a routine. One, this is going to create less anxiety for you when the world does go back to normal and we have to actually have a routine again. It's going to help us ease into it. Having a routine also kind of gives us a little bit of a feeling of control as to what's going on with ourselves. I can't control COVID. I can't control when the library is going to reopen, but things like setting myself an alarm so I'm still getting up at a decent time, doing some yoga in the morning. Working from home presents its own challenges, so taking that midday break to go for my walk or maybe do some more yoga. Meal times, breakfast, lunch, and dinner still at somewhat of a structured time. Just because I'm not leaving the house by 8 doesn't mean I still shouldn't eat my breakfast at a reasonable time. And bedtimes, very easy to be tempted to, well, I can stay up all night, I ain't got to go nowhere tomorrow. Stick to that routine of having that bedtime. Speaking of bedtime, sleep. I find myself, fatigue is definitely one of my symptoms of anxiety. I feel like I want to take 8 naps a day. Then that interferes with my bedtime. So having that regular bedtime and wake up time, like I talked about. But naps are okay. Naps, glorious naps, I call them. Take that nap if you need to. And if you need to hide under the covers, then by all means hide under the covers and cry for a few minutes if you need to. But sleep is a big one. If um, your insomnia is really severe, I definitely recommend you contact your doctor, your primary care physician, to see if there is a medication, if you're open to that to take. But if you are, change up your routine. Something like a nighttime wind down yoga, like I mentioned before, the meditation stories, turning the screens off and maybe reading a book, whatever it might do that can kind of help ease the anxiety and help you get to sleep. And find your joy. Um, find what brings you joy. Find those little things that can bring you the joy. Um, crafting, Creative Bug through the library is available to all of you English card holders. So if you are someone that likes to create and do crafts, check out Creative Bug, see what's out there. Maybe start thinking ahead to maybe I can make that birthday present for someone, or even further ahead, like Christmas presents. Don't feel guilty about watching your favorite TV show if it brings you joy. If you need to binge watch your favorite thing that makes you laugh, then binge watch it. Do it. Organize that closet. We have the time to do it, and you probably feel better once it is organized and you don't open it and everything just falls out at you. Cry it out. That sounds completely opposite of finding joy, but it's true. Crying is very cathartic and really can make you feel better. So if you need to just sit down and cry, sit down and cry. Going for a walk is another example. Eat the pizza. Just be done with it. I know the joke is the COVID-19, like the 19 pounds we're all gaining since this started because we're home. So true. I definitely have been stocking up on healthy snacks. But some days I'm going to eat the pizza because it's something that's going to bring me joy. I want to thank you all for joining me and listening to me today. I wanted to share with you some ways that you can reach me. If you need to talk, I am here. You can email me. There's my email address, tracy.orick@elmlive.org. We have also set up a Skype phone line that comes to me. And only me. I'm the only one that answers that phone. Typically available 9 to 4 on weekdays. That can change depending on if I'm in a meeting or working a split shift or something. But it does have a voicemail where you can leave a voicemail that I will get and return your call as soon as possible. That number is 331-642-0814. Also, while the library was open, I would have open office hours a couple of days a week, which was basically a time for any patrons to drop in at any time to get help, referrals, resources, need to talk, whatever it might be. And so I've reinstated those office hours in our virtual meeting rooms. So those are Mondays and Thursdays from 2 to 4 and Wednesdays from 6 to 8. You simply go to elmlive.org/virtual. You'll be greeted by a staff member, and they will assign you to the virtual meeting room that I am in. These are drop-in hours. If there's something you want to talk to me about and you don't want other people to be able to drop in, let me know. I can set up appointments outside of those hours where it's just us. All of my interactions are confidential. I do not document anything. I don't share anything. It's just me and the person I am talking to, and that's it. Be well. We miss you, and we can't wait to see you soon. Thanks so much.